Not sure how this is going to come out. I've been adjusting my camera for about 10 minutes and it feels like it's about to topple over. So if it topples over, just don't worry about that. We're just going to have to carry on with it because I don't have a lot more time to wait to get on. So, okay. 777. I was not going to let the day pass without coming on and doing something live somewhere because it's 777. So, and since today is such a big mark as far as watching realities maybe come a little more into focus, it depending on where we're at, if what we're going to be able to see and what we're going to be able to really kind of hone in on. 777 is kind of the next big gateway after we go through the summer solstice. 777 this year it feels very powerful. It feels very palatable in a lot of ways. I know for me, I've seen sort of snippets of realities that have a chance to come in, and I've seen some old ones resurface a little bit for me to sort of clear out what I have left about those realities. I don't so much feel like those realities are coming in to reappear for me. I kind of feel like they're kind of coming in to clear out what's left. So be very open to what comes in and out. And just because it might not happen today, doesn't matter. We get kind of bogged down on linear time, like everything has to be today. You know, the day of the summer solstice, the day of an eclipse, the day of whatever. Gateways open up weeks ahead. Portals can close weeks later. It doesn't really matter. You know, we kind of like to focus on a day because our human aspect is always going to kind of gravitate toward a day. And this is a big energetic push for the year of a lot of things that are to come. So some people would see it as like a halfway marker. I kind of feel like we're just finishing up old and starting new already, even if you don't feel it. So just be aware of little things that come in and out. We're not as aware in the beginning as we are later. Some of us, then you might become hyper aware for a while until you kind of balance it back out again. Hyper aware is if you think everything is sort of telling you this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Try not to attach to anything. That's one lesson I learned by watching a reality kind of revisit today in a kind of a strange way, but I knew it was kind of meant for me to hear it. You know, catching up with people kind of through other people. And some information came to me in that way today. And I normally don't check in on people energetically, which we all have the capability to do. Sometimes we're doing it more unconsciously than consciously. In the beginning, we're always going to be reading it unconsciously. But you'll get to a certain place where you can kind of hone in on someone's energy to see what's going on. It's not something I normally do unless I really feel strongly to kind of ping in on that and to see what's going on. But sometimes we're just going to get bits and snippets of things to kind of see where we're at and to see where the other person's at, especially if we were trying to kind of bring a reality together with that person to kind of see, is everyone in the same place? We kind of have it, I kind of call it my little energetic check-ins, you know? It's just I got to check and see. I got to check and see where this person is and if we're still in the same place or not. So you might find yourself getting information one way or the other in the next couple of weeks about people you used to know, perhaps people you haven't really even met yet. You just might be setting up some things energetically. You might be passing by the same people all the time. And I always knew when I was doing that mean I was starting to tee up a possible reality with certain people. If I would kind of almost talk to them, but quite not, but then they were kind of always around. So those are kind of some things I want everyone to keep in mind when we kind of go through the 777. I also want to talk a little bit about our roles and who's filling our slots, right? And it can be taken a couple of different ways, but we're gonna take it to who's filling our supporter slots, who are we supporting slots. We only have so many slots, right? It's kind of like when you cast a movie and when you're writing a story, there's only so many characters you can kind of juggle at one time. And even when you watch a movie and you notice there's too many characters in this movie. You know, there's a lot of movies out now, and one of the first things I'll hear anyone who's talking about the movie say, oh, it's too many people. You know, I couldn't keep track of all the storylines. With too many people in the movie, we need to focus on one thing or the other. What you'll find yourself doing is when you get to certain points of your story of ascension, that your cast gets smaller and smaller in a sense. There aren't a lot of people there anymore. You kind of might have people you're supporting one way or the other, whether it be financially supporting or you're energetically supporting them. You could be fulfilling, duties around the house, and they're providing the financial support. It could be flipped the other way around. It could just be someone you're energetically supporting, someone you're just in the reality for to maybe bring them into higher consciousness. I know that was my role for a lot of people for a while. Even if I wasn't going to be with them for the whole journey, I might have been their beginning, or someone in the start for them, but not going to be with them through the whole journey right now because there's too many other things they were going to go and do. So you're going to find that as you move through, those slots will become vacant. And then we have to see, okay, well, who's going to now come in and fill the slot? Because you're always going to have someone being in a supporter role and someone supporting. And that can flip and flop. But if you have a main person that's supporting you and it's time for them to go, and like I said, that can be a lot of different types of support. I don't want anyone to lock in on one type. It's going to be different for everyone depending what phase you're in. Sometimes it's financial support. Sometimes it's more energetic support. Sometimes even the financial support can come in just having a certain job for a while. I mean, I had that for a long time. I mean, I talked about this job as like epic and the realities I've created as far as having a job where I never had to go in, never had anything to do for like 3 years. And I got paid a massive amount of money to literally do nothing for a really long period of time. And I remember wanting that job to be something so much more from a human sense, from a human aspect. I wanted it to really kick ass at this job and change the whole company, blah, blah, blah. I had all these human things I wanted this job to be. And at the end of the day, when I got to the consciousness to really look at it, I could see the higher purpose of that job. And it was just to provide financial support where I was going through a lot of my sleeping a lot phase. I was going through a lot of my trying to figure out which aspect I was being most of the time. I always feel like in the beginning, we think we're so far along. We think we're so past third and fourth dimensional stuff and we're on, 12th dimensional stuff, not realizing that we're still really, really so ingrained in fourth dimensional stuff. We're still in our spiritual ego and a lot of that stuff. And I think that shifts later on where you get to a certain point where you don't realize how far you've come and you don't really want to give yourself credit for how far you've come. You can't even believe how far you've come. You're like, I can't believe I'm this far ahead. And ahead might not be the word I wanted to use there, but I've come so far. That I can now look back and see the reasons why all these things played out this way, all the reasons why we had certain things in our life and different things that had to come in. But because I wasn't married, and some people, their spouse will be a supporter for some parts of the time, and then until normally a lot of those relationships have to dissolve. Not all the time, but the majority of the time they will, or they have to be able to morph into something else, and the question is, can they morph into something else? Can we shift that? And sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, depending on everyone else in the reality. But for me, it was that job. And I remember I hated it so much. I hated it. I was so bored. I would drive an hour to get there, to set all day, to drive an hour home. And every review I got was how wonderful I was. And I was like, literally do nothing but sit here all day long. But whatever, that's how it was supposed to be. That was the agreement, right? That was the agreement. That's why when we create certain things, it's funny, this morning, I keep hearing the song, All I Need Is a Miracle. And I remember I was listening to a call once, a consciousness call for a group I was in. And the person said, sometimes just say, ask for a miracle. And I remember I asked for a miracle with this one person that I didn't feel like it was good. The reality was going anywhere. And I said, I really need a miracle on this one. And maybe 30 minutes later, something happened that kind of sparked the reality a little bit again. It still was highly not aligned and highly, fucked in a sense. It probably was not going to align. And I looked at it and kind of shut the reality down again. I looked at it, I was like, well, it was a miracle in a sense, but it's still not aligned. So be aware of both ends. When you want a miracle on certain things, don't be afraid to ask for it. Say, okay, I need a miracle. I need a Hail Mary on this one. For all my sports fans, I need a Hail Mary because its time is ticking and I don't think this is going to get moving. But we still have to look at it and see. And just because we shut a reality down again or close the door to it, it doesn't mean it's gone forever. It might come back again. Normally, for me, a lot of them will come back again. Sometimes it's just a test to see, can I really look at this and see, okay, is this aligned? is this what I want? Is this someone I'm gonna have them fill a slot? I mean, is this person going to be able to fill a slot? If you've supported, and just because you're supporting someone, whether it be energetically coming into consciousness, whatever, it doesn't mean they're doing anything to support you. Someone else could be supporting you completely separate from the relationship you have with this person. So when we start sorting out who's in which role for us, in a human reality, we always want to attach the same roles. We want it to be very reciprocal, linearly reciprocal, right? Like, okay, if that is my husband, I will support them, they support me. If this is my employer, I support them, they support me. I'm supporting this person with this, and I'm getting something in return back. It doesn't work that way. When you get into higher consciousness, multidimensional realities, when you're doing your soul purposes, in a sense, and living from your soul realities, or trying to even figure out what they look like, it's not linear. One person might be supporting you because you might have supported them 5 years ago in something else. Sometimes you might have supported someone 5 years ago and they never come back around again. Sometimes you might support someone because that's the job you're supposed to do, but something over here is supporting you so you can then fulfill your role over here with this person. So it's not going to be a linear thing. So don't look at someone and say, I'm supporting that person, they're not supporting me. I'm going to flip that. Well, I want you to start with that one. And that'll help you kind of maybe assess what's going on. But there does get to a point where when you are, and after you have supported people, however you have for like a long period of time, and they have opportunities to step up and support you in some way, and they're not doing it. And that starts to raise a lot of flags in, okay. And for me, it'll raise a flag. If I still feel like my purpose is to still be there, I'll continue to do my due diligence and do my duty and fulfill my agreement and continue to be there, because that's what I agreed to do on a soul level. They're just not stepping up. So when that agreement is fulfilled and I feel like I've completed that, and staying now I'm reversing. Now I'm staying there because I want something else that this reality was not built for. This person is not in a place for that. That person, in a sense, is not yet capable of providing that type of support. Whatever that support is, don't get so bogged down in it. It has to be money. It has to be this. It has to be success. It has to be an opportunity. It can be whatever is going to support you in that moment. But when you continuously see people who have the opportunity to, who are not stepping up, even if it's for you to put someone in contact with somebody else because you have the ability to do that, but you're not doing that for whatever reason. And usually it's everyone else's stuff, and sometimes our stuff too. Normally it's a bit of our stuff in there too. Even if it's just to show us we have stuff, to say, oh wait, I got a lot of my own shit going on right now. The more we go through nitpicking our roles, and trying to decide, and this is a great time to do it. I think a lot's going to be revealed to you on who is stepping up, who's not stepping up. Like today I had a chance to kind of have a little catch up, in a sense, with someone who had an opportunity to support, and they never really would step up into doing that until I had to shut the reality down, because I realized it was never going to grow any farther than it had grown. It had gone as far as it was going to go in that iteration. I've had that happen with a couple of relationships where it had gotten to a point where this is as far as this is going. We're not going farther here. After, 4 years, 5 years, 1 year, 2 years, some for me had been 4 or 5 years. I had been, supporting people in certain ways, and when I needed it, it wasn't there. So looking at that and really being open to that, and being open to the realization of that, like, okay, let me really look at this, and let me really look at what's going on. Sometimes we know we're supposed to stay for a certain period of time. What I've seen people do, and I did the same thing though, is they kind of overstay that welcome, waiting for the other person to kind of step up to the plate when there's been numerous times for people to step up to the plate. And once we start becoming our higher aspects, we get a lot of opportunities for people to step up to the plate. We practice until we can start to live it, in a sense. A higher love, a higher aspect love, a Christ-like, love, a God-like love, in a sense. And we don't get bogged down on the human stuff. We kind of look at it and go, okay, it's human. This is a very human action we're doing right now. Do I need to continue to play in this? If I'm going to keep getting the human aspect, It's another way to look at it. If I keep getting that aspect, no matter what I try to do, that's the only aspect I'm getting now. And maybe in the beginning you were seeing other shades of different aspects of them, but they couldn't hold them, and we would see the same shades in us where, I couldn't hold that aspect, and sometimes there are different people I was around where I noticed I couldn't hold my higher aspect around those people. And until I could, they were going to be there to keep testing me to see, can you hold it? Can you hold your highest even with these people? You see that a lot in the twin flame relationships where they will be kind of pegging at you in a sense, and you have to kind of decide, is there a purpose anymore? And sometimes we have to look at it. It's time to free up these slots. It's time to free up our casting in a sense. It's time to really look at who am I supporting, who's supporting me, and then watch it all start to unravel and rearrange, where now you have completely different people you're supporting, completely different people that are supporting you. And because you're in a different dimension, you're in a higher timeline, you're going to see it explained a lot of different ways in that sense. I'm in a different timeline, I'm in a higher timeline, I'm in a different dimension now. I'm able to all of a sudden see how everything has shifted because I couldn't stay in the same timeline again. Hello, Cynthia. It's 777. I had to come on for 777. So you're going to start to see all your stuff start to flip up. You're going to start to see everything start to rearrange. So look at who is filling these slots for you. Look at who you have in your life. Look at who you've had in there for a long time, waiting for some breakthrough with that person. And I'm going to call it a breakthrough because our human's going to wait for a breakthrough. And a key way to know if you're waiting for a breakthrough with someone is look at the words you use. I wish this would happen. I hope this will happen. Those are very disempowering words of wanting it to be something this reality might never have been structured to be. Because when we are structuring a reality around a hope and a wish that the other person will all of a sudden step into a higher role, when it's clearly not their time yet and clearly not time for them to do that, that causes us to really examine why we're still in it and what we're trying to get out of it. Now, when we had the summer solstice a few weeks ago, we talked a lot about how it starts to show you what you have to. For me, it showed me what I couldn't carry with me, because our new templates are starting to come in. And even if I can't see my new template yet of what I'll be doing, what I'll be focusing on the next 12 months or so, I can see what I can't be focusing on. I can see what has to go, what I have to resolve. And I can't take that with me. So we might just be seeing what we have to resolve. We might not yet be seeing the new thing yet, because technically that's blocked. It doesn't exist if we can't resolve what we have to resolve. That next thing we haven't vibrated into that reality yet where that next thing is, because we're too stuck in the old one. We're too stuck in trying to clear up the old stuff. We have to clean up our side of the street in a sense before we can then look around again and say, okay, now what am I going to focus on? What can I not take with me? When we're in our human aspect, we don't want to deal with stuff. Or we're going to try to deal with it in a very human way. We're going to try to deal with everything in a very human, linear sense. And we touched on this a little bit earlier with, that person does that for you, and I want to do that for that. Because that person did this for me, I'm going to do this for this person. Someone might do something for you, but you know that you are not supposed to fill the role to do that for them later on. Someone else is coming in to do that. That's not your role. And there'll be a lot of times you're going to be told, and when I say told by yourself, told by your higher self, that's not your role. They were there for you. You're not going to be there for them. You've got to go on and be there for somebody else. And some of that has to do with where people are in their journeys too. Like if you are in a time of restructuring your life, someone coming into the fifth dimension that's floating around, and I say floating around because that's really what we do. We get into the higher dimensional realities in the sense of how they feel, not in anchoring anything in yet. It's just how they feel, right? How they feel to us. What the feeling is, our eyes start to lighten, get a lot lighter. I remember that was one thing someone said to me, is like my eyes would just got lighter and lighter and lighter because we're embodying in more light. And the lighter we go, the higher we go. So we kind of feel like we're floating around. And when you're floating around, it might not be your time yet to start to anchor in. And when I say anchor in that consciousness yet. And when you do that, you also have to, you're restructuring your realities. That's how we anchor that consciousness in. We have to restructure our realities around that consciousness. And if we're not in that phase yet, trying to get someone to anchor in when they're still floating around, that's not a match. It's not a match, even though everyone's technically in higher consciousness in that moment, right? We're not dealing with anyone living 100% from their human aspect anymore. There's much improvement. If we look at that from a human aspect, that should work, right? I mean, that makes sense. It seems like everyone's kind of pulling out of the human hell realities and going into something else, but you're still in totally different places. And it still might not work because they're not in the sense that that's their time to do that yet. And really, that's just going to get on your nerves because you're trying to anchor and trying to rearrange, and this person wants to float around and take pictures of rainbows all day. And that's what we used to all do, whether it was rainbows or crystals or andars or just whatever it was for us. I mean, I was big into pendulums and tarot and all this stuff, but you're kind of floating around. You're just feeling it. You're starting to notice your field. You're starting to realize what you have the capability to do. You're starting to see how powerful you can be. You're starting to tap into your dream world. You're starting to sleep a little more. You're starting to open up more. You're starting to see yourself expand and grow. And when you're in that, you're not ready for someone to tell you, okay, you got to rearrange all that shit because nothing's really going to be aligned right now. And okay, you're not in the place for that yet. And so it's important to remember that too. When we're dealing with someone who's predominantly living from a human aspect, and I always want to say predominantly living from because that's not their only aspect. That's just the one they're going to gravitate to when the shit hits the fan. Okay? When things are tough, that's where they're going to go. And if they're constantly going there and they have not utilized any of the tools they've learned to go anywhere else yet, after a while, we know it's time to close out that reality and move on because it's not their time yet. They have other human things they want to experience, whether they want to have a twin experience, they want to go and do other things for their human template, whether it's having children or doing any of those type of what we might label as more human things. That feels easier sometimes to say, okay, that shit's not gonna work. It's very obvious that's weird and that's not gonna work. And I don't mean weird in a judging sense, but just like that doesn't feel right. Like, how is that gonna work? It'll drive you crazy. When someone's in a human aspect and you're operating predominantly from higher aspects, you can't coexist together. The only reason they're there is to show you a shade of you, to see, there's a zillion reasons that they're there. Can you shut that reality, close that down in its highest place? Can you see the difference? Do you really want to go back into that? They're also a test. Do you really want to go back and play in this again and again and again and again? Or are you not going to do that? So there's a lot of different things we're going to see when these things present. But there comes a time when that feels easier than when you get other people that are in different phases of whether they're in their awakening or ascension, and you have to really be able to look at that and see. That's why you see a lot of people go their separate ways for a while, because they have to. Everyone's in a different place, and if we always kind of stay with the same people, we can't then go through what we have to go through. We can't move forward. We have to be able to be on our own for a while. That's pivotal in everybody's journey. And to see, that's why it's so important for everyone to put out content on what they want to put out content on. And it doesn't matter what it is. If it feels pure to them and it feels right to them to put it out. A lot of stuff I put out 5 years ago, I wouldn't put out now. Because I could see 100 different reasons why that's probably not true anymore for me. But because we work from the future and we're always going to be working years ahead of the collective in a sense, that material has to be out there for when the collectives are in that place. But I wouldn't put that out now because I'm not in that place anymore. And I can't even listen to myself when I was in some of those places. And so it's tough for me to listen to other people when they're in those places. But you understand that's where they are. That just doesn't mean we all have to be huddled up together to create. Call forth people that are in your consciousness or higher. Call for someone in a higher vibrational match than you are. Call forth people that are your match also. I kind of do both. Sometimes I'll call forth higher. Sometimes I'll just bring me people that are my match. Bring me people higher. Normally, I'd rather have higher people because they're going to open me up more. But depending on where you are and what you're clearing, when I'm in a deep clearing, I don't want to hear someone in a higher consciousness than me. It just agitates me more. So I know when people are clearing, they don't want to hear me because it's going to agitate you more. I would always get agitated when I'd hear one person say one thing because I knew deep down it pinged on me because I knew I had to do it and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. It's like, I'm not going to listen, so now I'm going to call forth a lesson. And we have to look at that too. Where are we not listening right now? It's going to be distortions are loud. And you're going to notice when that frequency is distorted and it's no longer your home frequency, it's going to be really loud for you to look at it. And if we don't look at it, it's just going to get louder and more distorted. So as we pass through this, as we go through 777 and this huge portal, and most people probably could have felt it a couple weeks ago, even starting. I felt it pretty strong a couple of days ago starting. Look at who is in different roles in your life. Look at who's filling certain slots. Look at where we have to free up slots so someone new can come in. There was a great line in the movie You've Got Mail, and it was, more of in a human sense when two people were breaking up and one person said, is it someone else? And the other person said, no, there's a dream of someone else. And that's kind of how we have to be. We have to know that maybe no one is here right now to fill this slot, but there's a dream of someone else. We know, and because wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we do dream the future. Everyone is always, well, we're going to deem as the future just because it hasn't anchored in yet. We're dreaming different frequencies. We're dreaming higher frequencies. We know there's going to be someone else. Well, we just might not know who that is yet, but someone else will come in to fill these slots. But if we never free them up, we're never allowing that. Saying, I really like this person, but I really want this person in my life, but the minute we put but in it, we're saying we're going to shut down every other reality. And there's a problem. There's a problem because we're compromising on something. We're compromising on something, and it might seem like a small compromise for now, but it's also a test from our universe to see how long you're going to compromise on that. If the minute we put the but into it, we got a problem. With Houston, we have a problem. And anytime I catch myself saying that, oh, this would be perfect, but, oh, I'd love to have reality with that person, but, the minute the but comes in, I'm like, oh, that shit's not aligned. I would have to compromise a lot to make this work. And from what I've learned on trying to compromise on those things, it just doesn't work. It's just not aligned. It's going to collapse. It's just, what am I going to learn on the way? Because it's kind of like, if I'm not going to listen, I'm going to get a lesson here. What am I going to learn on the way? What am I going to be able to take with me going forward? What am I going to be able to hone in on here? Okay. To really see how much of a lesson do I need? And what do I need to have? So I think that is a good stop for today. I don't have anything else. Unless there's any questions, I don't have anything else. You're probably going to feel 777 for a while. I didn't even realize that's what it was until I saw that somewhere, and I'm like, holy shit, no wonder. No wonder I was feeling so much old and a glimpse of maybe new all at the same time. No wonder I'm feeling all that. So, all right. Good luck. Enjoy 777 and start your reevaluation process and really look at who's where and where there might be time to be some shifting and who are in our certain slots. Okay? All right.